The mind harbours desires, attachments, anxieties, fears, and the intellect accords values to things. This is important to me. This is unimportant to me. The intellect is the decision-making entity, and the mind desires. So let us ponder over the nature of this mind. I like to compare it to a subtle machine that is fitted within and which is constantly generating thoughts. The thoughts that we harbor are also little bundles of energy. Now, there is the wave form of energy that we have become familiar with over the last 150 years. There are so many waves in the environment. You cannot see them. But if you take a radio set and start turning the knob, you will keep on picking up the AM and FM stations. These waves are all present in the environment. Our thoughts are also bundles of energy, and they are impacting us in many ways. First of all, they impact our body. That is why you look at somebody and say, "Why are you so sad today?" The person responds, "How do you know that I am sad?" You know, your sad thoughts within have changed your physical demeanor. And you look at somebody else and say, "You are extremely happy today." The happy thoughts within again change the facial appearance. So our thoughts have the power to lift our blood pressure, to lower it. They have the ability to create varieties of psychosomatic diseases. Most importantly, it is by our thoughts that we experience happiness or misery. That is why the Western philosopher John Milton said, "The mind is a place of its own, and in itself can make heaven out of hell, and hell out of heaven." If we do not apply ourselves to the technology for mind management, then we may, as Franklin Roosevelt, the ex-president of America, said, "People are not slaves of destiny. They are slaves of their own mind." However, Roosevelt would have been astonished to know that a philosopher from India 2000 years before him had said, "Jagat jitam kena," that was Shankaracharya, "who shall influence the world?" And he responded himself in his Prashnavali, "Mano hiyena," that person who has conquered his own mind. An ancient Chinese philosopher Chuang Tzu said, "To one who has controlled the mind, the whole world surrenders." All of these people realized the power of this inner machine. So what is the nature of our thoughts at present? I compare it to the first TV sets that made their appearance in India in the 1970s. Does anybody remember them? They would have the channel switch. And often it would not work well. So the scenario would be that there are lines coming, and then it goes blank, and then there's a dotted line, and then one channel comes, and the other comes, and again the image starts slipping. That is the way our mental energy is getting dissipated at present. You think a little of this and you think a little of that. Why is this happening? If a car is going haywire on the road, there are two options. Either the driver is inebriated, intoxicated, so he has lost control over the steering. Or the other option is that the axle rod has broken, so the steering has lost control. Similarly, if we are unable to control our thought energy, there are again two options here. Either the machinery is defective, the hardware, brain. But I can safely assume that most of the people who have chosen to spend today evening listening to one bearded Swami speak about this inner technology, they have got good machinery bestowed on them by God. So the problem then is that we are not able to control it. If we sincerely ask ourselves this question, most of us present will say, Swamiji, you are right. There are times when I unnecessarily bring the same thought to my mind. It repeats like the ancient LPs. You know, before the MP3s were the cassette players, technology is advancing so rapidly, and before the cassette players were these vinyl LPs. There was a stylus that would be in the groove, and the LP long playing record would turn around, creating sounds. However, once in a while, the groove would be cut. So the same line would keep getting repeated. Main shayar to nahi, main shayar to nahi, main shayar to nahi. People would say, Band karo usko, it's got spoiled. Our mind also functions in the same manner. One teacher, he asked his students to lift up their glasses and said, are you feeling any discomfort? They said, absolutely not. He said, if I ask you to lift it like this for 10 minutes, then, the hand will get a little tired. And supposing you have to lift it for 6 hours, then what will happen? Then I will become exhausted. The teacher said, just like you become physically exhausted, why do you bring the unnecessary, worrisome thoughts of anxiety again and again and again to your mind? The reason is lack of control. So we feel our mind is lacking control. However, the Bhagavad Gita says that is not the case. All of you have the ability to manage this mind in a moment. It divides the mind into two parts, the mind and the intellect. Mai eva mana adhatsva mai buddhim niveshaya. The mind, the man, and the buddhi. So the mind harbors desires, attachments, anxieties, fears, and the intellect accords values to things. This is important to me. This is unimportant to me. The intellect is the decision-making entity, and the mind desires. So if the intellect decides that ice cream will give me a lot of happiness, the mind repeatedly desires ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. This is how the function of the intellect and the mind happens.